Mapdad here. In my quest to one day get to all 50 states, I used a recent father-son adventure to head to perhaps a lesser-known Southwest destination.
Sir, we've been booked into a small theater in New Mexico.
Whoa, slow down there, maestro. There's a New Mexico.
That's right, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Admitted to the Union in 1912 as the 47th state, it would be Mapdad's personal 41st state visited. Getting some advice from a friend who grew up in Albuquerque, we landed in New Mexico's biggest city early on the first day and immediately went to explore from one of its higher points, taking the Sandia Peak aerial tram to the top. At over 10,000 feet, the altitude had an immediate effect on this guy as we hiked over to the Kiwanis Cabin, a limestone structure built around 1930 and known now as a trail landmark. I would learn to constantly stay hydrated as I took in the literally breathtaking views. And for someone who doesn't live where it snows, seeing some frozen ground late in May was a nice change. Tram tickets are $33 round trip. From here, it was a chance to take what's known as the High Road to Taos, which winds its way through some small mountain towns, including Chimayo, where we stopped to check out the Santuario de Chimayo. Onward from here to Taos, the scenery continued to amaze. We would spend 3 days at the El Monte Sagrado Resort. This would be a splurge, as we had a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom suite, about $650 a night, that included tax. The designer felt it would remind someone of Marrakesh. Now, as someone who's never been, I could only take their word for it. The grounds were beautiful. It was about a 15-minute walk to the heart of Taos. The only first world problem, the room was promoted as a hot tub suite. There was a tub, the water got hot, but this was not my idea of a hot tub. Anyway, Taos, a really neat place. There is some grit, some grunge, lots of character. Unfortunately, the plaza in the heart of town was under construction. And looking for some local flavor this first night, we ambled over to the Alley Cantina, where my dinner of beef enchiladas would be one of the best meals I had all week. I highly recommend this place. Nothing fancy, really good. Day 2 started with an awesome breakfast at the Farmhouse Cafe, a few minutes north of downtown, the restaurant, part of a rustic shopping plaza. Then another 10-minute drive for a true trip back in time. We found ourselves at the Taos Pueblo, a $25 admission to this UNESCO World Heritage Site that has had someone living on property for the past 1,000 years. We took a 45-minute tour with a local college student who filled us in on the history of the people who lived and fought in the area for centuries. Also had a sample of the local fry bread, similar to what you might get at a county fair once you've put on all the powdered sugar. About a 15 to 20-minute drive from the Pueblo is the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge. Not a huge fan of heights, so I didn't wander out to the middle, but you can see it's quite a drop down to the Rio Grande River, about 600 feet. Next, a potential misstep for Mapdad. A big fan of art and of Georgia O'Keeffe, who lived for many years in New Mexico. We drove an hour from the bridge to the small town of Abiquiu to go to the O'Keeffe Home and Welcome Center, only to find them closed. Bad Mapdad. But a guy outside of the center said, go another 20 minutes west to Ghost Ranch. A former dude ranch now owned by the Presbyterian Church, we managed to get in an abbreviated hike with a $10 day pass. But the rumbling of thunder kept that short. We didn't see as much of the 21,000 acres as we would have liked, but the scenery was spectacular. We did get to see a cottage O'Keeffe lived in at one time, and on the way out spotted this structure. It looks like an old log cabin, but it was actually built for the 1991 movie City Slickers starring Billy Crystal. On the way out of town, a stop at Bodie's, a general store which has been around for over a century, for some rotisserie chicken and mac and cheese. Day 3 started out on the water, the Rio Grande to be precise. We took a morning rafting adventure with New Mexico River Adventures. Now, because of the immense snowmelt, the river was running at near record levels, and rapids that normally would have been classified as Class 2 and 3 were actually at 3 and 4, where Class 5s are considered the toughest. It was a fun trip. I stayed in the raft the entire time, though I did nearly go over once, landing on Map's son and getting a tug on my life jacket from the guy behind me. Now, since some passengers in the other rafts did end up in the river, I considered that an accomplishment, especially after seeing some of the pictures. As a hailstorm greeted us in the early afternoon, we had lunch in Arroyo Seco, a speck of a town halfway between Taos and the Taos Ski Valley. A stop at Taos Cow for some fantastic ice cream and a really good turkey club. That night, dinner was at Taos Mesa Brewing for some pints, a pizza, and chicken parm sub. Not bad, nothing though to write home about. We bid farewell to Taos on day 4, first with a hearty breakfast at Michael's Kitchen, which has been in Taos for almost 50 years. A good basic breakfast, and be prepared to wait for a table. A 90-minute drive then to Bandelier National Monument. This home to ancestral Pueblo people was home on this day to a huge group of school kids. So that created some issues as we waited to climb some small ladders to see some of the cliff dwellings. Speaking of ladders, the highlight, emphasis on high, the alcove house, which could only be reached by climbing 140 feet up a series of steps and ladders. If you don't look down, it's okay. Seeing the history and the views from the top, well worth it. In the summer, the popularity of the park requires visitors to park in the town of White Rock and take shuttle buses in. We were fortunate to find a place to park our car. After about an hour and a half or so, we decided to eat lunch at the cafe inside the park, and it was here I had the Doug, one of the best hamburgers I've ever had, and I would begin getting used to the chiles on almost everything. From Bandelier, it was on to Santa Fe, a little under an hour's drive. We'd be spending the next 3 nights at the Inn on the Alameda. A room night here, about $475 or so for a 1-bedroom suite. That includes tax. Map's son crashed here on the sofa bed. A fantastic breakfast buffet was included. You can see the green chile that I would put on my scrambled eggs. Okay, baby steps for me, I get it. And we had one semi-fancy dinner in Santa Fe. That would be at Osteria di Sisi. I had a seafood pasta that was good. My son had a pizza. Day 5 started with a 10-minute walk from the hotel to the New Mexico State Capitol. Built in the 1960s, it is overflowing with art. The next part of the day would be a mission to bring something home to Matt's wife for allowing me to continue to indulge in these travel adventures, and also since it would be her birthday. Outside of the Palace of the Governors, Native Americans set up shop to sell their wares. I didn't find anything there, but the receptionist at the hotel had told me about sissels for some moderately priced items also created by native jewelers. I found a few things there and then found a butterfly that caught my eye at Ortega's on the Plaza, the jewelry there at a much higher price point. On the Plaza, lunch was at the Plaza Cafe, one of Santa Fe's oldest restaurants. I continued my ground beef gorging with an upside-down Frito pie. Hey, if I have to eat vegetables, why not mix in a bag of Fritos? After lunch, a cultural afternoon, a stop at the New Mexico History Museum, $12 admission here, and then a make-good with a visit to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. I bought the tickets online a day in advance. They were $20 a piece. Day 6, maybe I took this art thing to an extreme. We went to the Meow Wolf Art Exhibition. It's about a 15-minute drive from the center of town. It was created by an artist collective that couldn't fit in with the more traditional art scene with their galleries lining Canyon Road. Now, there's a story to be told and discovered here about a missing family and time travel. Mapdad and son, well, we didn't quite have the mental energy needed for it. We still spent about 2 hours here as there were 70 rooms and hidden passageways and so much to discover. Now, at $42 a ticket, it did feel kind of steep, but this is truly a unique experience. And there were people of all ages here. It does get very crowded. And did you know that George Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones, bought the bowling alley where this art installation was created? Afterward, we went to the Rail Yard District, another part of Santa Fe with shops, a movie theater, restaurants. I highly recommend the caprese salad with steak tips at the Boxcar. That's actually going to be moving to the Plaza downtown later in 2023, I was told. Now, as Map's son's not the most adventurous eater, dinner that night at Mac Santa Fe in the Plaza. I would say the $22 lobster mac and cheese, not worth it. The regular and tuna macs at less than $10 a piece were much better. Our last full day would take us on the Turquoise Trail. That's New Mexico State Road 14, an alternative to Interstate 25 from Santa Fe back to Albuquerque. We got in one final hike at Cerrillos Hills State Park, and the view from El Mirador, the highlight of our hour or so jaunt, where we also saw some old mines along the trail. A true mapdad experience was in Sandia Crest, that's just off the Turquoise Trail, at the Tinkertown Museum, the tinkering of 40 years of a man named Ross Ward who built little western towns. $6, half an hour of your time for this little piece of Americana. The last night we would spend at the Sandia Resort and Casino just outside the Albuquerque city limits. A one-bedroom suite with a spectacular view of the mountains, about $400 that included tax. Now, if the blackjack dealers would stop drawing 5-card 21s, the trip would have been perfect, but whatever. It was a great father-son week exploring someplace new.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
I'm mapdad, hoping to point your travel in the right direction.